It's poison, don't be cruel, it's my prerogative to do what I gotta do, have a little sensitivity. Do me, baby, I wanna get rubbed the right way, so what you gotta say? Oh no, she's a candy girl, living in a half crazy world, that's the way I'm living, girl. Now every little step I take is another any heartbreak, my. It is Saturday, November 20th, 2015, and welcome to the Multifarious Man Podcast, episode 10, Word to the Mother. As always, I'm your host, Jay Vincent. You can follow me on Twitter at MultifariousMan and find links to the show and blog at www.multifariousman.com. Now, if you haven't already figured it out, today's episode is about my favorite singing group of all time. That is right, we're talking about New Edition. Johnny, Ronnie, Ricky, Mike, Ralph, Bobby too. When the first time I heard Candy Girl back in 1983, I've been a fan, and that has not changed 30 plus years later. So sit back and relax, and let's have some fun. Numerous and varied, greatly diverse and manifold, all the things I want to say that never been told. Dina Sinatra to Drake and Pharrell. When I'm listening to this week, you can never tell. Bogey and Bacall, even Meryl Streep. The devil wears Prada, even the big sleep. It doesn't matter where you stand, I'm the multifarious man. All right, we're back with the Multifarious Man podcast. Again, I'm your host, Jay Vincent, and here on episode 10, Word to the Mother. So first up, what am I reading, watching, and listening to today? First up is a book by an author, Elmore Leonard. He's known for Be Cool, Get Shorty, a few other novels. He also created the character Raylan Givens. So this book that I'm reading is called Raylan, and it's book 4 in the Raylan Givens series, basically. Pronto writing the rap. Also, was a TV series on FX, I believe, called Justified. Well, that character Raylan is what these books are based on. So this one was just sitting in my library and have some time off from work, so I'm going to add this to the list of what I'm reading. Now, what I'm watching is I've already started 4 episodes in on Netflix, and it's Marvel's Jessica Jones. Earlier this year, or it might have been last year, now that I think about it, they came out with Daredevil, and this takes place in the same city, New York, kind of near Hell's Kitchen. And Jessica Jones is basically, she has super strength. She can jump real far. She can't fly, so what she says is she can, jump and then fall, a controlled fall. And she just got tired of the whole superhero thing. So now she's just living everyday life as a private eye. So far it kind of has a Veronica Mars type vibe. She, Jessica, the title character, does voiceover. She narrates the story. And as the story unfolds, you're learning about, things that have happened in her past. She has a nemesis. She meets another Marvel character, Luke Cage. So it's pretty interesting so far. And the great thing I think about Netflix is you can have the slow build-up of story. You don't have to get everything in one episode. Because you know that you have the full, 13 episodes, and they're all available at once. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it right now. So if you haven't started watching it, go ahead and give it a chance. You don't have to have already seen any other Marvel movies like your Avengers or anything like that. They do mention the Hulk. So if this is your first adventure into it, it's a little adult, but definitely worth watching. Again, that's Marvel's Jessica Jones. Now, what am I listening to? 25 years ago this November, probably 2 of the most celebrated hip-hop albums in history were released on the same day, on November 9th, 1990. And that's People's Instinctive Travels and the Paths of a Rhythm by A Tribe Called Quest, and Enter the Wu-Tang, The 36 Chambers by the Wu-Tang Clan. 2 albums, completely different from one another. Wu-Tang, hard-hitting rhymes. It seems like there's 30 members in it, including Method Man, ODB, the RZA, the GZA, Ghostface Killer, all of that. Whereas Tribe Called Quest, 4 young men, 3 from Queens, 1 from Brooklyn, Q-Tip, Phife Dawg, Jarobi, and Ali. And, this was the beginning of their adventure. Jazz-infused rhyming, just having fun. And, to this day, you can still listen to these albums. And that's kind of why I was listening to them really the past couple of weeks. It's because of the anniversary, but, they stay in heavy rotation on my MP3 or my iPhone. So if you've never heard them, where have you been? When I graduated from high school in 1990, these were 2, going into college, these were 2 of the hottest albums out there. So that's what I was listening to, reading, and watching. And when we come back, we are going to talk about New Edition. All right, we're back with the Multifarious Man podcast. I'm your host, Jay Vincent. Again, this is episode 10, Word to Your Mother. It doesn't sound as cool as it does in my head, but that's okay. We're here to talk about my favorite group, New Edition. Now, why are they my favorite group? It's quite simple. Growing up as a kid, my parents played all the old Motown classics. So you have the Temptations, the Four Tops, and of course, you had the Jackson 5. By the time New Edition came out in 1983, Michael Jackson was taking on the world as a solo artist. But up until then, you just really knew him from when he was a little kid, Jackson 5. So here, 1983, these 5 kids burst upon the scene. The first time I heard the single Candy Girl, I thought it was the Jackson 5. That's how much these kids with their prepubescent voices sounded like a young Michael Jackson. Now, mind you, they were 12, 13, 14 years old. So for me, 1983, I'm 10 years old, and all of a sudden there's somebody that looks like me, there's my age, and they're making music. They're on TV. They have, doing videos, saw a Candy Girl video. And, I'd never seen anything like this before. So this is at an age when, you're learning to like girls. You're starting to go through puberty. And, the thing was to sing songs around the girls at the park. So, everybody knew all the New Edition songs. So, coming of age, elementary school, 5th, 6th grade, this was big time. So 83, I want to say, what was that? 3rd, 4th grade? Yeah, forgive me, I'm getting old, so can't remember that much. But all I know is 1983, had a chance to see New Edition perform at the Beacon Theater in New York with the rap group Houdini. It was interesting because, while we were at this concert, it was my sister and all of my cousins. We saw Cool from Kool and the Gang just kind of standing on the side, which, was kind of weird, but he was enjoying the show too. But this first album, they had the hits Candy Girl, Is This the End, Jealous Girl, and Popcorn Love. And I still listen to all those songs today, 30 plus years later. The following year, they released the album New Edition, so self-titled album. It was their second one. And this one they came out with, they played this all the time on the radio. I remember when I heard the first single, Cool It Now, on Kiss FM in New York, 98.7 Kiss FM. And just thinking, wow, the first album wasn't a fluke. Here they have another, hit single off a new album. And this was, of course, was followed up by Mr. Telephone Man, Lost in Love, and I'm Leaving You Again. And then they were so popular at this point in time, they actually were in the movie Crush Groove, and they actually sung one of the B-sides, My Secret. In fact, on most New Edition albums, I'll probably listen to it straight through, and I love the B-sides. B-sides, if you don't know from having vinyl or an actual record, half the songs would be on one side, the A side, and half would be on the other, the B side. B sides were usually not the songs that were released as singles, or if you did have an album, a song that was released as a single on a 45, the B side was just usually the extra song that they added in. But for some reason, I always loved the B sides off New Edition albums. Now, in 1985, started to have some rumblings. And one of the co-leads, Bobby Brown. Oh, look at me. I didn't even talk about the names of the members. You have Ralph Tresvant, Bobby Brown, Ronnie DeVoe, Ricky Bell, and Michael Bivins. Those are the original 5 members of New Edition. And, of course, Ralph Tresvant and Bobby Brown did most of the lead vocals on the first couple albums. So when the third album came out, All for Love, in 1985, there were rumblings that Bobby wanted to leave. Bobby was getting kicked out. Needless to say, when the album was released, they released it, with all, it's supposed to be all 5 of them, but Bobby really wasn't, performing with them. And this had the single Count Me Out, A Little Bit of Love, and having some microphone issues there. A Little Bit of Love, With You All the Way, and of course the title, All for Love. But for all intents and purposes, Bobby had left the group, so what was now a quartet was now 4 members, and no one knew what was going to happen next. What were they going to do? Were they going to keep performing, or was the group going to break up? So after that happened, they ended up singing the song Earth Angel. They sang in, I want to say, the Karate Kid 2. Ralph Macchio, if you haven't seen it. And based on the success of that song, which was, it's an old doo-wop song, they ended up doing a whole album of covers called Under the Blue Moon. And it was just Ronnie, Mike, Ricky, and Ralph on that cover. So it was just the 4 of them, and they did Under the Blue Moon. Probably one of my favorite albums. I love the old doo-wop. But of course, not knowing what was going to happen next, it was a little worrisome. So next year comes around, 86, Under the Blue Moon is out, and here Bobby Brown comes out with his album called King of the Stage, and he had a hit single called Girlfriend. To me, sounded pretty much like anything you'd get from a New Edition album, of course, because Bobby did a lot of the lead vocals. Girl Next Door was another song on there, but it really didn't do much. And you just really didn't know what was going to happen next. So a couple of years go by, and you find out New Edition is auditioning new members, and they're going to release a new album eventually. So they eventually agreed on bringing in Johnny Gill, who was a solo artist at that time, to join and make it a quartet again. And they came out in 1988 with the album Any Heartbreak. And I remember when this album came out, no one knew what to expect, because they knew from what you knew of Johnny Gill, he was a strong singer. You just didn't know how they were going to gel together, bringing in someone new. Well, they knocked it out of the park. When they released the video and the single for If It Isn't Love, and here the guys are, they're preparing to, for a concert, and the whole video is they're doing the choreography, and, they're not getting it right, and then finally they get it right. Super song, love the album, followed up by Crucial, You're Not My Kind of Girl, and then one of the other hits from that album was Can You Stand the Rain. So they proved that even without Bobby, they were capable of still being a viable group, and, they were going to continue from that point. Well, 1988, not to be outdone, Bobby comes out with his eventually multi-platinum selling album, Don't Be Cruel. Now, the first single he released after this was Don't Be Cruel. Hard-hitting, up-tempo. This was something totally different than anything you'd ever heard from Bobby Brown, and, it was a hit. I remember watching videos on BET, and Ralph McDaniels played, not Ralph McDaniels, Donnie Simpson, played the Don't Be Cruel video. Blew my mind. Me and my friends were watching it at a house back in New York, and just thinking like, wow, Bobby's taking it to the next level. Just like New Edition stepped up, Bobby stepped it up. Then he came out with My Prerogative. Now, this is the video where probably a lot of videos after this kind of copied after. He's on stage at a concert, has on the headset with the microphone, and he's dancing and singing about, do what I want to do. It's my prerogative. So here he is, Bobby Brown, the bad boy of R&B, singing My Prerogative. Album's off the hook, off the chain, whatever you want to say. They came out with a remix album of it, which I think was even better. And then you had the hits off this album, Ronnie, Tender Ronnie, another concert video, Rock With You, and Every Little Step. Even though now when I think about Every Little Step in the video, I can't help thinking of the spoof video that Wayne Brady did with Mike Tyson. Perfect recreation of the Every Little Step. If you haven't seen the original, Google it, go to Vivo, wherever, check out Every Little Step, and then Google the Wayne Brady version of it. You'll probably, laugh. You will roll on the floor laughing. So that was also 1988. A couple of years later, you're waiting for another New Edition album to come out, but then it seems like they're disbanding. So, Ralph had been wanting to do his own solo project. So basically the group seemed to have broken up. So 1990 was a big year. Ralph Tresvant came out with his solo album called Ralph Tresvant, with the hits Sensitivity, Stone Cold Gentleman, Do What I Gotta Do. And it, to me, just sounded like New Edition album, but without, Ricky and Ronnie and Johnny and Mike singing backup. So there you go. Ralph by himself sounded like a New Edition album. Then also that same year, Johnny Gill, very distinct voice, very powerful voice. He came out with his solo album. I mean, he'd been a solo recording artist, up until that time before he joined New Edition, so it wasn't surprising. And he knocked it out the park. He had the hits My, Rub You the Right Way, and Fair Weather Friend. So everybody's like, all right, so what's up with Ronnie, Mike, and Ricky? No? All right. Somebody said, well, they're going to form their own group called BBD, Belle Biv DeVoe, their last names. I'm like, all right, whatever. They're going to form a group. Okay, ha. Ricky's probably the only one that can sing. Mike and Ronnie, they do all the backup and, they dance. They're part of the quartet. They're standing on the ends. So what are they going to do? Well, they shook up the world and released Poison. Imagine, you're sitting there, you're waiting. All right, all the build up. All right, they're going to have this single and, world premiere video, Poison video. Are you kidding me? It totally different than anything they ever done with New Edition. And then you're realizing, oh, dang, these cats are the real deal. They just weren't like some extra. They weren't just like some backup. No. Ricky's voice powerful, and Mike and Ronnie, they brought some street swagger to it. They brought in some ghostwriters to to write some rhymes for them, but it worked. And Poison, Do Me. For Poison, the line, never trust a big button to smile. Everybody knows that line, of course. And album was off the hook. Do Me, When Will You See Me? When Will I See You Smile Again? And then, of course, they came out with the Boot City remix, and that's where they had Word to the Mother, which was, the lyrics I spoke at the beginning of this episode. That song was on the Boot City remix to Poison, and the song was Word to Your Mother, and it actually brought all the members of New Edition together for the first time. So Bobby was back, Johnny was there, and, they did this song back at the housing projects where most of the members of New Edition grew up and, met each other as young kids before they formed the group. So, 1990, they showed that they still had staying power. They went off on their own. Everyone was successful. And so you knew still what was going on with New Edition. A few years later, Bobby Brown came out with another album, which I think personally is my favorite Bobby Brown album. I mean, he did a few later, which I'm not even going to mention in this episode, but he had Humping Around, Good Enough, and surprise, surprise, the duet he did with his then wife, called Something in Common with Whitney Houston. Still surprising that they hooked up. Didn't matter. I liked the song. Great album. I can listen to it from start to finish over and over again. Then a few years later, there was a lull. Heard they were going to get back together, all the original members plus Johnny. So Johnny and Bobby, so 6 members. They got together. What? New Edition's getting back together? Yep, they got back together and recorded the album Home Again. It was released in 1996. And they've all pretty much, with and without Bobby, at various times, have been touring since then. Off and on, they broke up again, but Home Again had Hit Me Off, You Don't Have to Worry, One More Day, I'm Still in Love with You. And then a few years, 8 years later to be exact, 2004, they joined the label Bad Boy with Puffy, P. Diddy, whatever you call him, and released the album One Love. And they had this hit single off of that, Hot Tonight. Now, since then, they've been touring. BBD still gets out there and tours. Bobby does, all of them together. Ralph, Bobby, and Johnny also tour under the moniker Heads of State. So, basically since 83, these cats have been still doing it. For me, New Edition and their songs and listening to their songs have seen me through, first crushes, first love, first girlfriend, all the way through to today, married, father with kids, still can listen to New Edition anytime, any place. Doesn't matter that, I know the lyrics to all the songs. I can listen to the albums in order, out of order, doesn't matter. Love the skits on the album, especially any Heartbreak album. A lot of funny skits on it, which not enough people do anymore in terms of having skits on their albums. People got to bring them back. But that's it. That's, New Edition in a nutshell. I just love their music, love the group, seen them in concert many times. First starting with, 83 at the Beacon Theater. I've seen them at Jones Beach, seen them at the Long Island Coliseum, Nassau, Long Island. I've seen them, of course, Madison Square Garden, Westbury Music Fair. Anywhere you could see them, I've seen them in the New York region. And if I could see them, if they came anywhere near where I'm at now in Florida, I would definitely go to see them. Definitely still putting on fantastic shows. And that is it. New Edition. Love them. They're staying in my rotation and my music players forever. And when we come back, I'll close out the show. Again, this is the Multifarious Man Podcast. All right, we're back finishing up another episode 10. Can't believe I'm actually 10 episodes in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you don't know anything about New Edition, maybe you'll check them out. If you do, hopefully it'll bring back memories of, going to shows, dancing in the street, singing along, trying to impress the girls with your dance moves, memorizing, the moves from the videos and just showing off. Or if you're a parent, embarrassing your kids as you're dancing around and singing, how can the group be called New Edition when they're old, Dad? Yeah, I've gotten that one before. What do kids know? They don't know what a real group is. And I'll put New Edition up against, anything that came after, your Backstreet Boys, your NSYNC, your New Kids on the Block, or any of these groups today, like your One Direction. I'll take them any day of the week. As far as I'm concerned, other than the Jackson 5, no one really compares to them. And probably even more so because I think as a whole, they have a lot more talent. Not to take anything away from the Jacksons, but, you take away Michael. Yeah, exactly. So thank you for tuning in. Shout out to my friend Kai and Dominique, who actually, when I was debating what I was going to have this episode be about, it was either going to be New Edition or Humphrey Bogart movies. They actually chimed in immediately and were like, "Are you kidding me? Yeah, of course, New Edition." So shout out to my sister, who tells me she listens every week, my sister Jonda, who says she listens to the show every week. And in fact, today, because I was actually recording later than usual, she texted me and said, when are you going to post the show? So, yes, I did it, as always, on a Saturday, just not as early in the day. In fact, posted this and recording it in the evening, but that's okay. Still did it. So I hope you continue to listen. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Probably tomorrow I'll post in the show notes, a little bit more information about New Edition, including all the songs I mentioned, along with links for the book, The Raylan by Elmore Leonard, the 2 albums I mentioned by Tribe Called Quest and Wu-Tang Clan, and of course the Marvel's Jessica Jones. So, tune again next week. Until then, don't just be various when you can be multifarious. I am out of here. Numerous and varied, greatly diverse and manifold. All the things I want to say that never been told. Dina Sinatra to Drake and Pharrell. When I'm listening to this week, you can never tell. Bogey and Bacall, even Meryl Streep. The devil wears Prada, even the big sleep. It doesn't matter where you stand, I'm the multifarious man.